end the fight in the upcoming round. The match begins as Siha demolishes Jay's initiative. He delivers a crushing knockout punch that takes Jay down, but suddenly, Siha notices that he was struck by a powerful punch during that small instance. He realizes that Jay's strategy is to take hits all the while flooding his opponent with blows. The fight continues with Jay dishing out equal damage as he receives. He's trying to go for a match of endurance. Counterpunches are incredibly hard to throw because they paralyze the person's body before they're able to reply with an attack. That's why Jay trained his body to the brim to sustain such attacks. He's bringing the fight to the champion after having trained immensely to bulk up his physical weight. It's a fight between a natural predator against the common man. But even with those muscles, he's taking brutal damage with each hit. Jay's movements are beginning to stagger as the damage accumulates. It's now or never. His persistence keeps him at bay, so Siha targets his livers as they're the most sensitive part of the body. Tremendous pain floods him, but in that brief moment he delivers a counterpunch that knocks down the champion. It's a counter to a counter with both fighters barely hanging in the fight. Jay delivered an attack that nearly made him collapse. He capitalized in this moment to destroy Siha. Both fighters perfectly counter the other, but Jay receives a caning strike from the champion as he is taken down yet again. A memory of Ryu flashes in his mind. It was the fight where he actually struggled against an opponent, a fighter who fought freely without having a particular stance. Siha used the exact same movement of Ryu when he dodged steel. Though he's back up, Jay has faced tremendous damage with very little to rely on. Siha senses that there is nothing left for Jay to offer. He smashes him around the ring and thinks he should end the fight. But right before he does, the round comes to an end. Siha recommends him to surrender for his own good. Blonde Boy on the other hand is traumatized from his fight. Typhoon wants him to quit, but he's still in the game. Round 3 begins, and Siha easily handles Jay and his slow movements. The only thing this boy has left to offer is to take punches like how he learned in school. His coach thought he had gone crazy, but Jay wanted another round. Siha bashes him around, commenting on the mundane and boring aspects of life. Heroes and villains don't exist like they do in comics, as miracles only happen in fiction. Most humans are victims of the environment they are born with. Jay manages to attack Siha, who surprisingly refuses to dodge the track. The truth is, Siha also experienced severe damage accumulation. This allowed Jay to get his hits in. Both fighters were struggling to keep up, but now is the decisive moment of the fight. For Jay, he overcame massive hurdles, so he boasts the strength to endure such pain. His opponent is a hulk of talent who relies on squeezing consecutive punches, but he exhausts himself, allowing Jay to launch an uppercut. Siha dodges the uppercut and repeats Ryu's recoil punch, but it's not enough to knock him out. Jay follows with a counterpunch of his own and demolishes Siha as both fighters fall to the ground. A double knockdown has occurred. The referee makes his count as Jay emerges to take his stand. The crowd roars as he wins the match. A new national champion of the country is born, while Siha experiences his first loss in boxing. He thought he would lose to someone with more talent, but that prediction was proven wrong. One of them boxed to entertain himself while the other overcame it. It was clear that Jay was deserving of this victory. Jay wins the titleship match in the junior welterweight division. The scene cuts to a face we've all been dying to see. It's Ryu, who has been freed after receiving his sentence. He returns to his boss and no longer wants to work for the thugs, but he experiences a sudden dizziness as they drug his meal. Ryu's still as good as he once was and doesn't mind slaughtering them. The entire gang rushed to attack him as he demolished everyone. After defeating them and reminding the vermin of their place, he is ready to kill anyone who stands in his way. Ryu wonders where his life took a downward spiral. He doesn't know if it started with the feeling of humiliation, loss, or hitting someone. Ryu at his lowest became a nobody until Josh discovered him outside his bar. He begged for food before collapsing. Josh fed him with a good meal and learned that they were the same age. He even offered Ryu a chance to work at the bar, but he refused, stating it wasn't like him to work that kind of job. He glanced to spot Josh's trophies and realized he was a boxer. Curiously, Ryu asked if Josh had any merit in the professional boxing world. He answered that he's only good in local matches as the world stage is a different beast. Something took over Ryu as he begged to fight him. A frustrated Josh took him to the alleyway to fight. Ryu treated him callously, but he's still quick on the draw. Josh evaded him, but still gave him a tough time. Coincidentally, Gene's coach came to witness Ryu's boxing. He possessed amazing timing paired with brilliant reaction speed. At the same time, his movements were so odd. This is due to the injury he suffered in his leg. As a consequence, Josh pummels him to the ground. Josh reminds him that he was a greater fighter back then than he is now. Remembering his frustrating conversation with Kay, Josh claimed that there were two geniuses in the country of Korea, more powerful than even him, who never learned to box. He left the white-haired punk in the gutter. Gene stood over him and asked what he really wanted, but in response, Bitchface just told him to frick off. He looked like a pathetic sight laying on the ground, but Peter still extended him an invitation to find him if he wanted to go pro. Wherever he goes, Ryu's past haunts him in the face of Jay. The sight of Yu traumatizes him while Josh reminds him of his inferiority. Even Kay called him a worthless piece of trash, leaving him the most fragile he's ever been. Peter meets with Gene and tells him about his interaction with an interesting fellow in the street. Ryu follows a path that Peter has sculpted for him. Back then, he saw Yu's fight against Jay. The world froze in its place. Ryu eventually arrived at the gym and expressed wanting to become a professional boxer. Peter wanted to hear it in his heart and soul. Ryu gave the old geezer what he wanted, but he wasn't going to receive the privilege of being trained for free. After all, he's one of the best coaches in the world, but he's ready to give him a discount if he works at a local restaurant. Bro gets tossed outside so that he can learn the value of work. The next day, he shows up to Josh's bar and earnestly states that he wants to work in his kitchen. Josh demands that he apologize for his actions. Ryu had never in his life thought that he could apologize to anyone, but he was forced to chew his words and uttered the words of apology. He felt embarrassed with a bit of freedom. He was finally experiencing the growth he had never experienced before. Ryu starts at once doing dishes, but this dude is secretly plotting to destroy Josh in their revenge match. He shaves his hair for a cleaner look and decides to change for the better. When he showed up to the gym, he saw Gene for the first time, the same guy who went up against the best in the whole world. Ryu issues the payment for the gym as Peter teaches him his first boxing lesson. Ryu hates that he's being ridiculed because he already knows such basic movements. He prefers learning how to fight in an actual fight, but Peter tells him that he still doesn't know a thing about boxing. Ryu tries to show his 1-2 combo, but it's pathetic compared to the ordinary. Peter notices that Ryu hurts his leg whenever he tries executing an attack. Everything rests on a person's leg, as they're crucial for his style. Ryu gets pissed and directly challenges Gene for a fight. Such bold words aren't enough to get him a ring with Gene. Peter gets him a ring with an amateur pro boxer to see if he's up to the case. Bitchface is actually confident he's going to win because of his form. The fight begins and it's instantly clear that Ryu boasts God-given talent. He might have become a powerful boxer, but he's being pushed back in a ring against an amateur one. Peter stops the fight before the first round even finishes. Obviously, Crybaby is pretty frustrated by his performance and his ego can't stomach losing to a guy who hasn't even gone pro. Finally, he blurts out that Kay himself acknowledged him as a genius boxer. A moment of silence follows before Gene voluntarily accepts the fighting match. He intentionally hides one of his arms and even places an easy win condition for Ryu. The fight doesn't even begin before it ends. Ryu realized that Gene didn't knock him out purposefully as he wanted to show him the difference in skill. In just a few fractions of seconds, Ryu endured a hell of pain against this monster until he eventually blacked out. When he woke up again, Peter had to give him the cold news. The genius was no longer the genius he thought he was. There was no point in his training if he trained the old way, but after a while, Ryu regained his footing and managed to win a fight. When they were at school, Ryu boasted an exceptional ability in sports, while Yu seemed like a guy who could navigate between a bunch of skills. He was incredible at reactionary sports. He was the kind of person to boast incredible talent, even among the geniuses. Ryu fights Larry, remembering to cast away his old self. His only leverage point is stamina, so he's working to maintain that in a fight. In the pro boxing scene, Ryu crushes his opponents, but he still deploys imperfect techniques in the world arena. Peter scolds him for it and reminds the boxer of his weaknesses. They share a dinner together, and the hopes of living a normal life are starting to set in. Ryu does everything he should and has formed good relationships in life. He thinks normal life is good for him as he's far from beating the monsters of the boxing world. It's plain within sight that he will never become a world champion, but he's fine with that. He's fine with being average. The following day, Peter gives him the good news. Ryu is at the #1 level in his country, so it's good if they try to go for world level sport now. His first opponent is the boxing king of Korea, Jay. In an unusual manner, he asks to train with Josh, even going as far as to apologize to him. Later, he meets up at the big stage with Typhoon and Jay, and learns that he's been spending time at his old gym. He wanted to apologize to him at first, but Jay's gaze didn't change the slightest. Of course, his personality barely changed, and he refused to shake his hand. Ryu had a crushing feeling inside. He did not want to lose to that boy. The day of the match finally arrived. Both fighters stepped onto the big stage as the crowd went wild. They stared at each other. Peter recommended that Ryu maintain a strategy to win with points instead of a knockout, since he's dealing with the definition of resilience. But of course he doesn't need to know this since he's experienced it firsthand. Ryu challenges Jay and immediately gets bashed in fucking face for it. That first punch knocked him right down, as he realized that it was impossible for him to defeat this guy. The shock of being hit bewilders him as he realizes Jay is looking down on him. The fight continues as Jay hammers a barrage of punches that go on and on without end. Ryu receives a brutal beatdown of his life as none of his punches mean shit. His opponent wears a body of steel with so much endurance that it's difficult to take him down. The one person he looked down upon his entire life outclassed him by leaps and bounds. The first round ends with Jay's domination in the ring, but he believes Ryu is still hiding his real ability. On the other side, Peter guides him to hang in there and tire his opponent out. The longer the fight, the better the chances of winning. But that's not Ryu's style. He doesn't want to win like that and desires to end the fight in the next round. The fight begins as Jay feels a shiver down his spine. Ryu's fist connects and batters him with incredible speed. He wants to break Jay's resolve by cornering him with heavy punches. The scene reminds him of their initial fight. Jay senses Ryu's weak point in his leg, and yet he still gets uppercutted. Memories of their training flash before their eyes as Jay corners and knocks the wind out of his opponent. Ryu collapses to the ground, and for the second time he feels that it is impossible to defeat the champion of Korea. He refused to accept such an ending. Ryu gets up again to confront his morbid reality. Despite his charged advance to defeat the champion, all he receives is a punch that knocks the daylights out of him. The fight is over as Jay surpasses him in the race. His coach roars at him to get back up, but this pathetic fighter has lost himself to misery. He pities his bad leg, but then remembers Peter's words. Just why did he return to the gym? The answer was simple. He cultivated a desire to box. Mustering that spirit, Ryu fidgets and starts all over again. The damage accumulation is flooding his body, but Jay still wants to be cautious in this fight. He advances to finish the fight in 30 seconds. He had to endure the brunt of many heavy punches during that time span. The referee commanded the end of the round, letting Ryu survive for a little while longer. The third round began as he prioritized maintaining his guard. This is done to recover from the damage, but Jay isn't going to do that. Surprisingly, Ryu executed a clinch that stopped the flow of his movement. Then when it became tough, Ryu executed a second clinch. He was finally following Peter's strategy to win the fight. Finally, it was possible for him to win as the underdog of the ring, but even with that strategy, he gets destroyed by Jay. The little guy came back for some hardcore revenge. Ryu regains consciousness, but it's not enough as the difference in their effort is too vast. The third round comes to an end, and he doesn't even have a game plan. 3 more rounds fly past as Ryu is beginning to question how long this match will go. Peter even calls him a punching bag and thinks he should opt out of the fight if he wants, but Ryu reminds his coach of his own words. He doesn't want to leave anything in his tank before calling it quits. Round 7 begins with Ryu's envy for Jay, who became a successful boxer after putting in hours of effort into the sport. He was blessed with talent and took his talent for granted. The boy was just an idiot child from back then. He watched Gene and learned from him. He too had traversed the path of growth. Ryu finally executed a successful punch, but in response he got countered by impressive blows from his opponent. Ryu accepts getting overpowered. He's fine with losing, but a miracle occurs as Jay slips and suffers from a critical wound. Now that his vision has been compromised, Ryu hammers to attack him. Instead of slowing down, Jay goes even faster on the attack. But this nervousness is clear. The goddess of victory has decided for a different outcome in this match. Ryu senses a brief moment for an opportunity and lands a critical counterpunch, knocking down his opponent. Jay doesn't want to quit and gets right back up. The round continues, but Ryu is easily maneuvering against his opponent. He realizes that Jay's sight is so bad he can't see properly. The world was never fair even in competition. This fight wasn't supposed to end this way. A silly accident couldn't have equalized them. Ryu strikes Jay with a thunderous hook. The injury is getting more pronounced for the boxer. Ryu wants him to just stop as he's already overcome the advantage, but he keeps going, eating a dozen punches from his opponent. It comes to a point Jay goes completely blind in both his eyes. He tracks his opponent based on instinct. Ryu was fine with being alone and didn't require a family. Even when he was a little boy, he thought he was everything. He thought he was the best, and that no one could overpower him. That's how he used to feel, but ever since their fight, Jay is the only person who has seen the real him. To settle this cursed relationship, both fighters launched a final punch, striking each other in the face. Ryu's entire body is nearly collapsing, but he wants to show Jay that he's grown. The match suddenly concludes in Ryu's comeback victory when a doctor steps inside the ring. Ryu is shocked that he won the fight. He was so shocked that he didn't drop his guard even when Jay was getting checked by the doctor. The only reason that kept him standing was his determination, even with a damaged leg. Ryu realized that even from back then, it was just pure luck that he had more talent than other people. He was pronounced the champion and recovered his relationship with Jay. That day he cried tears and meant every word, but Jay wanted the world to celebrate his win and looked forward to their future matches. After the fight, they met up on the world stage. They fought many more matches after and waited for one more person to come. Ryu wonders if he should apologize because he's the one who got rushed to the hospital instead. Bro is out here plotting to beat Yu with a combined attack. Jay is like, what the frick is going on with him? Lo and behold, Yu arrives with a happy smile on his face. They talked about many things and discussed the kind of leads they were currently leading. Time passed and eventually their stories came to a close. Ryu exhausted his life working for a non-profit organization while Jay opened his boxing gym. Josh's business grew to an insane amount while John worked worked as a chef. Kasim, the crazy maniac, spent his life traveling the world while Gene exhausted his life in the art of painting. Yuto Takeda lived a healthy life running a fruit shop with Yamaguchi until he too succumbed to age. Marco became the chairman of the Boxing Association to end corruption, while his brother founded a charitable organization, Mohawk Man. Victor became an actor while Aaron spent the rest of his life becoming a doctor and treating his patients. Finally, for the main protagonist of our story, he took his final breaths resting in Carmen's embrace. They shared many times together and everything felt fulfilled. Instead of becoming a monster, Yu lived a human's life and stepped down from the ring at 84 years of age. Carmen was there to see him in his final moments. The boxer steps up to the ring as this phenomenal story comes to a close.